Quick question. What's the one thing you'd do almost anything to avoid, but it could happen anytime, anywhere? For millions of people, it's not public speaking, it's not spider sets throwing up. Sounds simple, right? But here's the twist for some. This fear is so intense it controls what they eat, where they go, and even how they live their daily lives. So why does something so basic scare us so much? Stick with me. The answer will probably surprise you. Imagine this. You're out with friends at a restaurant, everyone's laughing, the food smells amazing. But while they're deciding between burgers or pasta, your mind is racing. What if this chicken isn't cooked all the way? What if I get sick tonight? What if I throw up in front of everyone? Suddenly your appetite disappears. And instead of enjoying the night, you're quietly calculating escape routes, scanning for the nearest bathroom and wishing you could just relax like everyone else. Sound familiar? So, you're not alone. For some of us, this fear of throwing up slips into everyday life in ways most people wouldn't even notice. You might avoid buffets or food trucks because you don't trust how the food is handled. Maybe you skip parties where drinking is involved because the thought of someone getting sick nearby makes your chest tighten. Even simple things like long road trips, airplanes, or roller coasters suddenly feel risky, not because of the ride itself, but because of the possibility of nausea. And sometimes you even find yourself checking expiration dates twice, 3 times, just to be sure. The truth is, these small fears quietly add up. They make your world smaller, your choices fewer, and your freedom limited. But because vomiting is so rarely talked about, you carry this fear silently, convinced it's just you. And that's the hardest part. This invisible weight that shapes your life until one day you realize the fear of being sick is keeping you from actually living. Here's something most people don't know. Your brain's fear of throwing up has its own name, emetophobia. And scientists have found that it lights up the same parts of the brain that react to spiders, snakes, or even public speaking. In other words, your mind treats nausea like a predator. Another surprising fact. Researchers discovered that just anticipating vomiting, even if it never happens, can trigger the same fight-or-flight response as actually being sick. That's why even the thought of it can make your heart pound, your palms sweat, and your stomach tighten. Now, let's balance that with what most of us already know. Vomiting is the body's natural defense system. It's how your body clears out toxins or viruses. Everyone's been there. Food poisoning after bad takeout, a rough stomach flu, maybe too many drinks at a college party. And while it feels terrible in the moment, your body almost always bounces back stronger. It's uncomfortable, yes, but for most people, it's not life-threatening. We've all experienced it, we've all survived it, and yet, for some, the memory of that one awful night becomes a mental prison. And here's why this science matters. When you realize your brain is misfiring, treating a natural body function like a deadly threat, the fear suddenly makes sense. But more importantly, it means there's a way to retrain it. Understanding what's happening in your head isn't just interesting trivia, it's the first real step to breaking free from the fear that's quietly holding you back. Picture this, a college student named Sarah sitting in a packed lecture hall. The professor's voice is echoing, but Sarah isn't hearing a single word. Her heart is racing, her palms are clammy, and her eyes keep darting toward the door. Why? Because someone in the back coughed, and instantly her brain whispered the one thought she dreads most. What if they throw up? What if I can't escape? To anyone else, it's just a normal day. But to Sarah, it's a silent nightmare unfolding. In real time, as the professor continues, Sarah feels her stomach twist, not from illness, but from fear. Her throat tightens, her breathing gets shallow, and her mind starts flashing worst-case scenarios. What if she vomits in front of everyone? What if she's trapped with no way out? The lecture hall suddenly feels smaller, hotter, suffocating. She grips her desk, praying for the clock to move faster, wishing she could just disappear. To her, this isn't a little anxiety. It's a fight for survival when the class finally ends. Sarah bolts from the room, heart pounding as if she just ran a marathon. On the outside, no one notices. But inside, she's drained, ashamed, and already dreading the next class. It's a cycle. Avoid, panic, escape, repeat. And here's the haunting part. Sarah knows the fear isn't logical, but it still controls her choices, her freedom, her life. The question is, can that cycle ever be broken? Here's the truth. The way out of this fear isn't about avoiding vomit forever. It's about retraining your brain so it no longer sees it as a life-threatening danger. The core solution is exposure and reframing. In simple words, it means teaching your mind step by step that the thought of throwing up doesn't have to trigger panic. You don't need to cure nausea or guarantee safety everywhere you go. What you can do is break the automatic cycle of fear that's been running your life. So how do you actually do that? Step 1. Controlled exposure. Start small by intentionally thinking about the word vomit or looking at the letters written down. Sounds silly, but repeated in a safe space. Your brain begins to relax. Step 2. Pair those moments with calming techniques, slow breathing, grounding with your senses, even reminding yourself this is uncomfortable but not dangerous. Step 3. Expand gradually, practicing in slightly more triggering places like a classroom or a restaurant, always giving yourself permission to step back when needed. Each step builds confidence, not fear. And here's the reward. Imagine walking into a lecture, a plane, or a crowded movie theater and realizing your stomach isn't tied in knots. Instead of constantly scanning for escape routes, you're present, calm, even enjoying yourself. This fear doesn't have to be a prison. It can be the very challenge that teaches you resilience. The cycle can break, and you can break it. So let's circle back to where we began. Remember that question? Why are so many people scared of throwing up? At first, it sounded almost strange, maybe even embarrassing to admit. But through this journey, we uncovered the truth. It's not just about vomit at all. It's about how your brain wires fear, how it tricks you into seeing danger where none exists, and how those silent loops of anxiety shape daily life. What started as a curiosity now makes sense, and it's not just their problem, something many of us quietly carry. And here's the big takeaway. Fear doesn't make you broken. It makes you human. When you understand what's happening in your mind and when you learn simple steps to challenge those thoughts, you start taking your power back. The panic isn't in control anymore. You are. That shift from helpless to empowered is where transformation begins. And it doesn't take perfection, just the willingness to start. So here's where we go next. If fear of vomiting is really a fear of losing control, then what about the other fears that run in the background, like public speaking, social rejection, or even making the wrong life choice? In our next video, we're diving into why your brain clings to control and how letting go might be the most freeing thing you'll ever do. If this spoke to you, you'll love what's coming next.